In July of 2013, I wrote an article for Mother's Word about getting hotter. Even back then, we're not getting global warming. God would not allow us to do that. You know, the thing in the church, oh no, it doesn't exist. Of course, that's when we were a billion less people too. But, oh no, God, oh no, God wouldn't allow us to add CO2 to the planet. Yeah. It would offend God. Yes, we don't want to offend God. And God wouldn't allow us to do that thing. And this is God's thing, and the thing hasn't changed in, 6,000 to 10,000 years? Yeah, that's right. But since the late 1800s, things like New York Times would record temperatures. Now, that was a time when everybody burned coal. Okay. And the city, in the wintertime, you would get this haze through the city and ash through the city. Yeah. But it wasn't very big. Our society back in the 1885s, late 1800s, wasn't big around the world. They had a lot of people, but it just wasn't big, and everybody burned coal. Unless you burn wood. But basically everybody burned coal. And they recorded the temperatures. And they would see a slight increase. Very slight. Winters were very that thing. But of course, you did happen to have the polar vortex come down and really freeze everything up. You still had cold winters. It was 20 below zero, 30 degrees below zero. In the Rockies, it was 40 degrees below zero on the average all the time. But in like New York City, Chicago, that thing, we get just a little bit. Los Angeles really wasn't a city back then. It didn't become a city until it became Hollywood. Yeah, that's big difference. But there was a slight increase. And it was a slight increase because we were burning coal, adding a lot of CO2 to the atmosphere. And after World War II, you happen to have, you developed your gas fields. Big difference, yes. Kind of like having a war that developed gas fields. And people started switching over to gas furnaces. Why? You had the suburbs. And you get in the suburbs, it's a lot cleaner. And you really wanted to have something to replace coal. Coal was a problem, yes. And so you had gas. Oh, we have these gas fields, yes. What are we going to do with this gas? The war's over with. What are we going to do? Going to pipe it to the suburban homes. And that's what they did. Of course, that releases CO2 too. The spring of 2012 was a warm spring, an early spring, a really early spring. They say it's kind of like started 30 days earlier and lasted to way into the fall. I mean, it was warm that year. But again, 2011 saw a lot of snow, record colds, really cold, folks. You remember heating your house? Yes, I remember heating my house. Yes. But again, it was still, some days it was really cold, a lot of snow on the ground. If it happens in January, there's a lot of snow on the ground. Happens December, a lot of snow is going to stay around. Happens November, a lot of snow is going to stay around. But the following year, a lot of snow didn't stay around. But each year is getting slightly warmer. And there's that little thing. Summers happened. I have had years where I cut the grass every week because there's rain, there's moisture, grass grows, it does things. Other years, starts in May, no rain, or not enough rain, and the grass turns brown. And then around September, actually, basically after how do I explain it? After Labor Day, it rains. Oh, and it keeps raining. Then it rains again. Grass turns green again, and but each year, just a slight increase in temperature, and the snows come later. And if they come, they melt earlier. Sure, it goes to 20 below zero during a vortex, but it doesn't always happen. It doesn't always happen. It's 20 below zero. It can be a 0, or it can be in the single digit, or it can be in the teens, or it can be in the 30s. And that's global warming. But the following year, we're going to have this great big vortex. A couple of years, we had big vortex. We had a couple of vortexes hitting all the way down into Texas, Houston. Got freezing weather. You know what it did to the livestock? You know what it did to wild animals? The big zoos? Slaughtered them, died. Animals that were not in found themselves in 20-degree weather. Not only that 20-degree weather basically wiped out the power grid down there, electric grid down there, and a lot of homes couldn't heat their homes. They did not prepare for a thing. They didn't have wood burning stoves. Those had wood burning stoves had no problem. Power goes off, they still heat their house. They even heat their basement. They open a door and hot air goes flowing down. And other people just saw their pipes burst. Now, in garden shops, you can find wood-burning stoves. It's like, oh yeah, wood-burning stoves. But it killed a lot of animals in the South. Killed a lot of people, too. Now we really watching global warming. Basically this slight increase all across America, and you have seen forest fires. Now, back in 2013, I was saying, it's getting warmer to the point the Pine Beetle is moving north. Yeah, and they're causing dryouts, and you have forest fires. And of course, when you get up to the northern Canada and Alaska, you have permafrost, which is melting. They saw it back in 2012. They saw that thing. Permafrost is melting. That means anything that was sitting on permafrost shifted. Homes shifted. Pipelines shifted. Yes, pipelines shifted. And methane gas basically bubbling up. And in the springtime, it's released. And it just keeps bubbling up all of that thing. The permafrost that used to be there for the last 100,000 years, it's all melting. And it's really devastating to forests. The old trees, the pine trees, they all decided to change angles, which is awful. Yeah, and it is the, permafrost is melting all over. And look what it did in Siberia. Or once you happen to have these large lakes forming, sinkholes forming, big ones, filling up with water again. But filling up with water, the water gets warm. What happens? More, it expands. You're having lakes where there were never lakes for the last 100,000 years. And it's also having an effect on basically drying out everything. Siberia lost, what was that? Last year, I think they lost 40 million acres in Russia. It started a fire. They couldn't put it out. And that's how the conditions are getting so bad. And considering Russia is a wheat exporter now, they were once a wheat importer, yeah, but now they're an exporter, or they were until February 28th. President Putin, thank you, President Putin. But, well, maybe it was one of the reasons that President Putin wanted to grab Ukraine, because Ukraine was a wheat exporter. And there's a lot of stored wheat there, and farmers can't plant because they can't trust their fields because the Russians bomb the fields. They put these holes in it. Why? Oh, so the farmers can't do anything. Well, when the Russians go in, they're going to fill it in, but the Russians don't dare to go out because incoming missiles. It's like they go out on their little tractors and they get killed. Gee, that one missile landed on top of them. Farmers don't go out. Yeah, country starving. And of course, you get things like Greenland. Greenland used to burn diesel fuel. Now think it, to generation in the country. They don't do that anymore. They have water turbines. Yeah. And Greenland's glaciers are melting, so they put a turbine in there, which saves on diesel fuel. And the turbines travel, basically all year long. They say, why? Because it's getting warmer in Greenland. The water's flowing all the time. It's not dropping. It really north, of course, we're talking of. But they're harvesting the rivers. They got a water turbine in there because it's not cold enough. It's not dropping 40 degrees below zero on all of Greenland, which has the effect. You ever see the dog sleds? They don't have dog sleds anymore. They don't need them. They have trucks. There isn't the snow that it used to fall. It's not there anymore. The Arctic is melting. The ice is no longer thick. 6 feet thick. It's no longer 6 feet thick. It's too warm. The waters are all warm. Sure, it freezes. Wintertime you can see the coating of ice there, but it's not, 6, 12, 15 feet thick anymore. That is a real problem. And there is that big problem too. Melt off. Flowing into the right there thing, it says to happen to be the Gulf Stream. A lot of cold water is being added to the Gulf Stream, which is changing the temperature in Europe. As they say, not only changing the temperature in Europe, but to the point that they're growing grapes in Scotland, wine grapes in Scotland, but it has an effect on climate change in France. The French are not able to ship out champagne. It's having an effect. And it's really an effect. So what's going to happen? Forest fires. You can't plant fields of wheat in the west. Rains too much in Florida. Slushy. Oceans rise. Or somebody once said, we have really screwed the pooch on this one. What's the solution? Get rid of 8 billion people?